the area, they prepared a report and sent to my office that I am filing stories, pro-government stories, and passing on information through that pro-government stories, which basically helps the opposition. And then they also accused me of aiding the locals with plans for further movement. And so my office said, you can do it. I said, I am not doing. But these things went on, and finally I had to shift my office. Then got a better office who said, go and write what you see. So that was the place, and that is how we plan stories.
A couple of observations. As journalists, we possibly or probably know it's a plant, but still we fall into that plant or trap. So why? I represent a television station, a television channel. I would say it's an era of breaking news where there is this cutthroat competition with scramble for, especially Indian television, for this three-letter word called TRP. That's a tragedy indeed. And for that TRP, you do anything or rather everything. That's a tragedy indeed. Let me just give you an example. How plans are being done. Plans are at times done with some sort of a diversionary tactics by militants. About a year ago, there was a call from a rebel commander belonging to the United Liberation Front of Assam, that is one of the largest rebel armies in the northeast. The rebel commander calls me up and says that they are going to target some vital installations, including security forces, pinpointed informations in eastern Assam, just on the eve of India's Independence Day. It was pinpointed information, giving locations and other details. So then I was just wondering for a few minutes as to why all of a sudden they are giving me pinpointed information. Normally they don't. But then there was, we decided editorially that we need to break the story, because this same might call a rival channel, and maybe they will score over us, so let us break it. So we went for 3 hours, full blast, with all our DSNG vans in those particular things, that this is the information, and we were going live. Then what happens? 2 days down the line, the militants, instead of attacking those eastern Assam targets, they focused on western and central Assam. So, in the process, what happened? The security forces, based on our reports, pinpointed reports, they relocated their forces and strengthened those locations, but then in the process left these areas open. So these are very good diversionary tactics. But still we fell into that trap. It's not that we didn't know it. So my point is that it's not always the government who does do plans, but it's the non-state actors as well. The government do selective plans. Selective plans in the sense that, like, they always try to plant a story, a big story, to one particular newspaper or one particular channel at a time. But at the same time, maybe in another 15 days, they will give it to another channel. As Rita Panchandana was mentioning about the supra-state, I would say it's a calculated plant by the Home Ministry, trying to gauge the mood of the 3 states which could be, if this is done, could be affected. It is Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, and Manipur. So supra-state effect. This is basically a federal relationship sort of a thing, which has been going on. It's nothing new to me, but this word supra-state gave a lot of credence to that story. But then we initially, the day this story came out, we really thought that this is a big plant, and you see, this is going to be like, it will create some definite impact, but maybe in the next 1 week or 10 days, there will be a lot of problems. So initially, when the report came in, then other newspapers and agencies picked up, and then the government was bound to react that not an inch of our land will be given to Nagaland, so that they would be able to administer. So what happens? The Home Minister has to come up. The Home Ministry rather came up with a statement and says that this is malicious, baseless, and unfounded. So we presume this could be another, calculated plant so as to gauge the mood and see how the other states react. And a couple of points that you have made, just maybe set the facts right. Not a single journalist died during the Assam movement. You said 60s. You said six. Not a single journalist died in the Assam movement. I think I'll clarify. Parag Das was not a spokesperson of the Assam movement. He was a spokesperson of the ALPHA, United Liberation. I think where you have confused us, 67. It's 26 dead during militancy, but Assam movement is totally a different chapter. It's to do with the foreigners, anti-foreigner uprising, whereas the ALPHA movement is a totally different issue. So just clarifying the facts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me start by thanking all the contributors.
Who has reported a report on the particular issue, does it have any basis, or just he is wanting to show what he exactly is? Then unfortunately, to inform you here, that in our state, during the turmoil area, there has started, a lot of papers have come into it. A lot of registrations have been done in these 22 years. I fail to understand what is the reason behind these registrations, because some registrations are lying just as a registration and the paper does not exist. And in that, I believe that is the RNI who gives the registration. Before giving a registration, at least they should see whether the paper who is applying for, or the person who is applying for the registration, does he belong to the field, or can he give the better journalism to the people, or what he is reporting will affect the people and the views of people, because the reports which we see in the papers generally create a view in the masses. Then I also want to say that the people of my state, whether the small journalist or a big journalist, face for the local, who are feeding the local papers, they face the more threats and the manhandling by the police and the administration. Whereas that is not the case with the national media. They are given more access than the people of the local media. Then I would even like to say, when these people, when these reporters are threatened or attacked or manhandled, then how do we expect that they give the real journalism, they give the real reporting? So they know how to play tactics. For that I would like to give an example. Just yesterday about one Abdullah Huni, about whom one of the reporter reported that he was killed. This report was reported 6 times. It was reported 6 times in Kashmir that once he was killed in Dal Lake, another time he was shown he was killed in Sopore. So I do not understand, when a journalist reports such a type of a reporting, how a single person could be killed 6 times by the police. How can we judge whether it was killed when once it was shown in Dal Lake? Was that the real point, or was it when he was recently killed? How can a consumer identify the difference? Then I would like even to tell you that when the government generally, the state generally tries to crop in stories according to their choice. For that I would like to give you an example. When the 3 people were nominated for Kashmir, the Dilip Adgaonkar, Radha Kumar, and then this Ansari, for Kashmir settlement, to document on Kashmir settlement, they used to come to Kashmir, and earlier in first 2-3 visits, they were not able to get a lot of people to speak to. So on behalf of some person or somebody or some group, I was asked to facilitate them. So I did the same. Media used to show whatever they required, and they used to meet people on the front as well as at the back. But one day they wanted that they should meet those stone pelters, the real youth, who is, I cannot say the stone pelters, the angry youth, who is angry with the policy or the strategy of the government of Kashmir. So that was arranged for 2.5 hour meeting was arranged, and they were made to speak to these people. So the moment the function started, the first thing the students, they were from the law, they were law graduates, they said that there is a trust deficit, due to which what all is happening. So I am sorry to say, once the whole thing was going on, after the 2.5 hours were over, Radha Kumar comes out and says, "Aap ye video clipping utha rahe, kindly delete that." So the child asked why. She said, because you will distort it outside and show into media what you like. So earlier, only 2 hours before, it was told by the same youth that there is a trust deficit. She showed the trust deficit again. And the child whom she targeted, she said to Dilip Adgamkar, "I don't think so. She is proper for the project." But this was not reported in the press. The only thing which was reported in the press that they met them, they met the people in Sopore, they met the people in Badgam, but these things were not reported. When Radha Kumar next turn came to Srinagar and she was whistled off, she was not allowed to enter in a particular college in SP, but that was not reported. So I do not understand the journalists who are on the ground. I believe if they have to be true to the issue, they have to be practical, and the selection should be accordingly while the newspapers are being given registration. Thank you.
I've been working in newspapers, mainly daily newspaper, almost 2 decades. Yeah, definitely there are cases of plant, mostly government side, military, police. They plant stories, and more than that, the editors themselves, they remain quite close to power sectors, and most of the time they do that. Even in our case, like during state of emergency, we have seen the editors, they wrote editorials supporting emergency, because emergency, that word is freedom of expression, and those sort of things shouldn't be in the newspapers. But if we try to give some spaces, then we can curtail those sort of things. We can counter those kind of events. Like there were press statements during our conflict. The military press statement says like they have killed some terrorists. But if at that time we went in the field and I found they were just coming from the small gathering, there was the celebration in the night. Finally it was found, and then it was totally different story. If we do not rely only on those sort of agencies, either government or the conflict or the non-government actors, I think we can give the real picture. There are many events, and every day we can see that. Not only that, the corporate culture that's been killing lots of spaces for the real stories. Like sometimes they come up with huge space for these their editorials, and most of the times they are publishing them without saying that is editorial. Earlier, journalists, they used to say like journalists, they are getting money from to publish something. But nowadays the media house itself, they are earning money. So because of that, that's been destroying the real essence of the journalism. Okay, you can find some committed editors, reporters, they can bring little bit changes. But you cannot get the same sort of situation all the time. I think those sort of things are also creating problems our job.
Thank you very much. See, as a non-journalist, I was aware that there are plants, but I never realized till I started the session that there are so many plants.
There's a plantation.
Yeah, so many. I have also tried but failed. But then, now I am beginning to wonder whether what we get is news or a harvest of lies. And here people have been talking of plants by the state and also plants by those in resistance. I think there are also plants by the media. And there are not just plants, but my experience, especially in Kashmir, shows that there could also be reverse plants. Just like we have reverse sweep in cricket. I remember one instance during this Amarnath Yatra. I think there is this channel, Take One, which operates both from the valley and also from in Jammu. And I remember, please correct me if I am wrong, I remember, because the people in the valley had taken one particular position about Amarnath Yatra, and people in Jammu had taken a totally reverse position on that. And this fantastic channel was carrying this news regularly about the same Amarnath Yatra, but the Jammu channel would cover it in a one way, and the Kashmir channel would cover it in totally different. Am I right? So this I think.
And the owner happens to be the advisor to the chief minister.
So I mean, this I think is obnoxious, atrocious, and should not be accepted. I am willing to accept bias. I mean, there cannot be any individual, there cannot be any thing without any bias. I think bias is human. To have some bias is human. But I think when bias becomes deliberate, that is where the danger lies. And I think what is happening in the media is deliberate bias being taken to its extreme. Not just deliberate bias, out of some goodwill, but it is being taken to its goodwill, to its extreme. And if you see the bias and the mischief it can cause, is deliberate bias, planting one type of thing, the mischief it can cause is already proved beyond any doubt in Iraq and in so many other places. Where it is the media bias which had led to all these, the reporting that was done by the media. I think this is something which is a matter for grave concern. And I think just like everybody is excised by this whole phenomenon of corruption in the state, where it is eating into the vitals of society, I think this biased reporting, planted reporting by the media is also reaching those dangerous proportions. And I know freedom of press is supreme, but at the same time, this biased reporting, I think we need to check it. And when it seems to be approaching this 2G proportions, it is time to wake up and take action. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There are many things to talk about in this session, but I will not go on. The news source, plans. We don't have to forget that, not only government or military or police, but sometimes opposition and rebels, they also plan news. We don't have to forget that Maoist has been, using us many times when they were in jungle. That we were totally used sometimes, sometimes they said, one time they said in one district, in the village area, there are 10 women are raped at a night. And they wanted to divert Bipul Kadhan somewhere. But we wrote that news, but it was not. Totally it was wrong information. So we have been used many times by Maoists also. So we reliable, sometimes we believe in news source, but what's happened? What I wanted to know from Sarvajit Ji, that you have been reporting about that famous farmer suicide issues. You said that Punjabi had or still has stigma about suicide reporting. They said maybe our coming generation will not be able to get married if we report the case. So how did you manage their confidentiality or their right to privacy? You know, when did you report that time you reported the issues? Because of this is also related to conflict. You know, sometimes we report when we go to field, and it's happened especially in sexual violence case during the conflict. You know, people they want right to. I mean, we have to preserve their right to privacy also, and we have to, you know, raise the issues also. So how did you manage that time? Just I wanted to know about it. Thank you.
Just quickly,
Yeah, no, please,
couple of points.
we would love to.
Proliferation of newspapers has come up in conflict area, and I think it's it would be a very interesting study. And I go by what has happened in Northeast or in Jammu and Kashmir, and what is happening also in the 9 states. You'll find there is a sudden increase in the number of publications that are coming out. There are fictitious militants who have surrendered, who are provided money by the agencies to open up newspapers. There are newspapers of journalists who are bought off, who bring out newspapers. They are fed advertisements, whereas they sell no more than 500, 600 copies. I mean, all these things are known. So sudden proliferation itself is not an indication of, the quantity does not reflect quality actually. It does not, and you are absolutely right. And in fact, this can be vouched by if you look at do a content analysis of newspapers, for instance, in the Valley, and suddenly see in the last 20 years, the number of newspapers or magazines that have come up, look at their circulation and things like that, and you'll discover what lies behind it. And there is a lot of funding that is coming from the agencies. And in fact, everybody knows that Ministry of Military Intelligence, Intelligence Bureau, and the J&K Police fund every month 90% of the media, and those who are not on the tape, they actually are suspect. So the extent of, the manipulation that the state can do, I reject this notion that the militants, the Maoists or rebels have the capacity to manipulate to the extent the state is. So there should be a care and a balanced approach. Just putting both of them together and saying both sides do it, I'm sorry, I do not agree with it. There is a huge difference, and a content analysis would establish this again and again. The second point I want to make is, and this is from my experience of hostage Amarnath. Amarnath crisis, in fact, Mazhar pointed out at how Take One gave different coverage. That is one part of the story. I was in constant touch with the journalists, the cinematographers who were photographing in Jammu the agitation that was being conducted by the Hindu fanatics. Okay? And the caliber of that protest was also coming out, and they sent me CDs. They say, sir, this is what we have. These are the things that have not been shown, and this will show you exactly what kind of things that have happened. They had shot the lynching of the 2 cops in Jammu area. The contrast between the quality of agitation and